Hello, welcome to BrassTacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. There were protests outside the Indian High Commission in London, the second time that's happened in 3 days, but this time around, the London police seem to have been better prepared. They're not allowing the Khalistani protesters to get anywhere close to the embassy premises. They've been kept to the other side of the road, and so far it has been peaceful. But that was not before the Indian side expressed its deep displeasure with what happened on Sunday. Today, outside the British High Commission, as well as the residence of the British High Commissioner, security barricades were removed, sending a very, very clear message to London that it is not acceptable what happened just outside the Indian High Commission on Sunday afternoon. Meanwhile, the man in the eye of the storm, Amritpal Singh, the head of Waris Punjab Day, there is no trace of this man 5 days after that dramatic chase sequence with the Punjab police. Where is he? Because bringing him to face justice is absolutely critical to putting an end once and for all to this absolutely bizarre escape that seems to have happened over almost a week ago. But first, the story of what transpired both in London as well as here in India. And just days after the desecration bid at the Indian Embassy in London, there was a second protest by separatists today. This time around, the London police, though, took no chances. There was heavy security deployment hours ahead of this planned protest. There were barricades, barbed wire, all put out outside the perimeter of the Indian High Commission. As a result, the protesters have been kept at bay. In fact, they have not been allowed to come to the side of the road which houses the High Commission. In fact, they're protesting on the other side of the road. They have been kept to the other side of the road by the London police. These scenes are vastly different from the mayhem that we saw on Sunday, which was a separatist scaling the building of the High Commission wall and the wall of the building, High Commission building, and then trying to pull down the tricolour and instead hoist the Khalistani flag. It seems like the London police have learnt their lessons from what happened on Sunday. I want to first go across to my colleague Rutangshu Bhattacharya, who's joining us live from outside the Indian High Commission premises. Just sort of paint the picture for us. What is going on around you and what is different on ground today as compared to what happened 3 days ago?
Well, good evening, Zaka, to you and to all our viewers. I'm standing right now at Aldwych outside the Indian High Commission here. Three things have happened in the last 1 hour, which I'd like to quickly point out to viewers. One is, Zaka, this protest, and I'm just quickly walk through which is happening. This protest you see that's happening on the other side, it was supposed to wrap up at 3 p.m. local time, which is around 8:30 p.m. IST. Obviously, that has not happened. Now, what you can see right now has been a dramatic buildup of police presence in the last few minutes. This has happened because there are unconfirmed reports coming in that there were some projectiles which were lobbed at the security cavalcade cordon, which involved reports coming in of ink bottles and other stuff. The police have so far been unable to confirm it to me. But as you can see, there's been a massive buildup of police mobilization on both sides of the street. This is, of course, the Indian High Commission here. This was the flagpole which was targeted by the separatists last Sunday. And that, of course, is secured right now with barbed wire and fences. And the bigger tricolour which was put up in the aftermath of the incident remains. But as you can see, Zaka, this was supposed to wrap up about half an hour ago. That has not happened so far. There are some very provocative slogans that have been going on in the past few minutes, targeting the Prime Minister, targeting the state, and in favor of separatists like Amritpal. There's still a sizable presence. There is sloganeering happening. There are a lot of people with face shields and face masks and hoods on. So right now, Zaka, while so far it's been peaceful, nothing compared to what happened last Sunday, but the situation is still a bit tense and it's still not showing any signs of wrapping up anytime soon. Zaka.
Is there any word you're getting in from the Metropolitan Police as to what lessons they learned from the last time around? Yes, they did allow the protests to go on, but they have taken precautions and ensured that they don't come to the side of the road where you're reporting from, which houses the Indian High Commission. Instead, these protesters have been on the other side of the road. So what is it that they've done now in terms of learning lessons from what happened Sunday? And how long do they expect this to go on for?
Well, Zaka, everything you see on the ground right now are lessons which have been learned, because usually on this part of the street, especially on Sunday, there's no met local police officials here. So the Indian High Commission just has its own security staff, which is why it probably got a bit overwhelmed on Sunday and what we saw in terms of the Khalistani flag demonstration that happened. So everything you see, and this is unprecedented, Zaka, because for the last 4 hours, I've been seeing a lot of locals and a lot of other international tourists stopping, looking at what is happening, inquiring with the local police, inquiring with the protesters themselves, inquiring with us also, because these are unprecedented scenes in London in terms of the mobilization, in terms of the police presence. That's what got a lot of people quite intrigued in terms of the sheer presence of Met Police on the ground here. So all of these are lessons learned. And so far, this crowd, which has been pretty vocal in its sloganeering support, has not been able to come out of this side so far. I also, to answer your second question, Zaka, these cops are essentially boots on the ground. They have been given an instruction to stop, to secure this building, and doing so. A lot of them aren't even aware of who's protesting and in what are the grounds. They just anticipate a disturbance in front of this Indian High Commission, and they're seeking it. And they don't really know when this protest is going to get over. They did tell me that, yes, the time was given to them to 3 p.m. local time, but obviously that has not gotten over. They're not going to use force from the looks of it, Zaka, unless the protesters themselves turn violent here. But they're not going to use force to dissipate this crowd here. So it remains to be seen if and when this crowd moves away, and if it does so peacefully or under coercive steps from the Metropolitan Police.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Ritangshu Bhattacharya there reporting for us tonight from London, outside the Indian High Commission there in the heart of the city. So the Metropolitan Police seemingly learning some lessons from what happened on Sunday. Meanwhile, ahead of that protest, and this is where I guess some amount of corrective action has been taken, and that's because India sent out a very strong message earlier today. Barricades that were put up outside the British High Commission were removed by the Delhi police. The Indian government had lodged a very strong diplomatic protest on Sunday, calling on the senior-most diplomat available at that time, asking him to ensure that adequate security is provided to the Indian High Commission. This was after what happened on Sunday, after a pro-Khalistan protester tried to scale up the walls of the High Commission building and then remove the Indian flag. That, of course, was thwarted by a security guard. But what happened today, both outside the British High Commission as well as the residence of the High Commissioner, where security barricades, PCR vans, the extra layer of security that you see around those buildings were removed by the Delhi police. It wasn't, like I said, not just the High Commission, but also the residence of the UK High Commissioner right now, Alex Ellis. He's currently out of the country, and the British High Commission refused to comment on this matter, saying that they do not comment on security matters. It brings back memories from December of 2013 at the height of the Devyani Khobragade incident, when barricades around the US Embassy were removed after the Indian Consul General in New York at that time, Devyani Khobragade, was subjected to ill treatment by US authorities.
The barricades, there used to be, in fact, how there was a separate lane to, in fact, enter the residence of the High Commissioner, the UK High Commissioner. But today we are seeing that these means of securities have, in fact, been removed from right in front from the residence of the High Commissioner.
So what are these extra security privileges enjoyed by overseas envoys who are stationed here in India? First, there is something called the special security status, which includes additional barricades outside their embassies or the homes of these envoys, extra security personnel who keep vigil outside these premises, as well as, of course, pilot vehicles every time they travel in the capital. These are typically provided as per the threat perception for each mission, as it were. The special security status is what has been removed for the UK High Commissioner today. There are regular protocols for envoys wherein the Indian government is duty-bound to protect the premises of a mission against any kind of intrusion or damage. This extends not just to the High Commission or embassy building, but also to the private residences of foreign representatives. It is given the same level of protection as that of a mission. Now, security and traffic arrangements are also made in case of any major movement in and around those premises. So the question that is being asked then is, why are we seeing these protests in countries like the UK, US, Australia, Canada, and why are these countries giving almost like a free run to these Khalistanis? Now, one reason is that these countries view Sikhs as minorities. That's why they tend to look the other way when it comes to crimes committed by Sikhs and prefer to deal with them with kid gloves, if you will. Both US and European nations have also got a very liberal attitude when it comes to free speech. So whether it is protests in front of a high commission, even a referendum, we've seen that in the name of Khalistan referendum in UK, in Canada, etc. These countries tend to view it as part of free speech and allow it to happen. Another big factor is that in many constituencies, particularly in the UK, in Canada, the Sikh vote is a very critical component. The Sikhs have voted sometimes for Labour, sometimes for Conservatives, and they can be a crucial swing vote while electing members of parliament. Now, the question then is, how can India deal with this kind of Khalistani activism that we're seeing abroad? For starters, India needs to be very clear in its line of communication on what the real situation on the ground is. Sikhs, tens of millions of them, are living not just in Punjab but around the country, are progressing just as the country is. So basically, India needs to battle this fake narrative, much of which is being spun by pro-Khalistani groups operating from abroad, that Sikhs are not in danger in Punjab or anywhere in India, that Sikhism is thriving in India. India also needs to explain that there has always been a peaceful history between Hindus and Sikhs in this country. The two communities have been in sync for centuries together. So the answer to this violence and outrage by pro-Khalistanis, particularly in foreign nations, is to kind of launch a counter-offensive, if you will, and present the true picture of what is actually going on here in the country. Meanwhile, the man in the center of this storm is Waris Punjab Day Chief Amritpal Singh. He's the one who triggered the London separatist protests in the first place. He is still MIA 5 days after that encounter that happened on Saturday. The self-styled separatist has managed to dodge the police for the last 5 days. There's a dramatic hunt across Punjab and other states. He was constantly switching vehicles. You can see a picture of him now wearing a pink turban, riding pillion on a two-wheeler. The latest CCTV footage shows him leaving his car and making his getaway along with a few of his aides in at least 2 bikes. He even managed to change his appearance, swapping his religious clothes for a shirt and trouser, also changing into a pink turban from his blue one. He kept his clothes and kirpan behind in the car. The Punjab police have also recovered this bike in which Amritpal was seen fleeing. The bike was found abandoned near a canal near Darapur. It's about 40-odd kilometers from Jalandhar. While Amritpal was on the run since Saturday, the police have arrested more than 100 of his aides. Meanwhile, politics has broken out over Amritpal Singh in Punjab. Today, the Punjab Assembly met and there were chaotic scenes. The Shiromani Akali Dal calling the Punjab police's manhunt extra-constitutional and a conspiracy. The party has offered legal aid to all the youths who've been arrested in this crackdown. Akali Dal released a list of helpline numbers for this legal effort. Meanwhile, the Congress is also demanding Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann's resignation over the government's failure to arrest Amritpal Singh. The party has asked, how did he manage to escape despite the administration having 80,000 police personnel at their disposal? All right, let's open this up to our guest. Navdeep Suri is former High Commissioner to Australia. Professor Brahma Chalani, Strategic Affairs expert. Waseek is a writer and commentator joining us from London. And Arshdeep Sinclair is the Shiromani Akali Dal spokesperson. Ambassador Suri, let me start with you first. From the pictures that we're getting from London, it's quite a contrast what is happening right now there compared to what happened on Sunday. Do you believe the London Metropolitan Police, the British authorities, the Foreign Office there have learnt their lessons, not least because India today took some precipitative action by removing the security barricades and the extra layer of security, both at the High Commission as well as at the High Commissioner's residence?
Well, Zaka, it's good to see the London Metropolitan Police doing something to earn the salaries that they get, because it's their damn responsibility to protect the diplomatic missions under the Vienna Convention. So what they are doing is something that they should have been doing in the first place. I saw the report that you showed us, and it's a bit facile to say that, because the protest was on Sunday, there was nobody around. London has an exceptionally high density of CCTV cameras. There are no surprises. Everybody is tracked. Everybody is monitored. There is an iron curtain around London. And so the message that went on Sunday was that people could do something as egregious as this and get away. There was almost a sense of impunity that they had. So I'm glad that the government of India took one step. Perhaps it's just a very necessary first step, perhaps with the promise of more to follow, because I really think we have to get the Brits and several other countries out of this notion that you can play politics on these issues, that you can have your local constituencies, your local MPs act in the way that they do, and there is nothing that India is going to do in return. I think we have sent a strong signal, but it's just a first step. There could be others up our sleeve if the perpetrator who was responsible for desecrating the Indian flag is not apprehended. After all, his visuals are available, face recognition softwares are available. What's the problem to catch him? What's the problem in going after his handlers, his puppeteers?
So let me ask Professor Brahmachalani,
yeah.
There might be politics at play here. Neither Conservatives nor Labour want to, touch the Sikh community, as it were, because of the reasons I outlined earlier on in the program, but most notably because they are a vote bank. But the point is, I mean, if India were to do something similar, if India were to host, let's say, the head of the IRA, or bring a bunch of Northern Islanders here and allow them to protest outside the British High Commission, would that be acceptable? I mean, I guess somewhere down the line, we need to call a spade a spade. Yes, removing security outside the High Commission is fair enough. These protests are still going on. It just happens to be on the other side of the road and it's peaceful so far. But it's not like the protests have stopped, and it's not like the British authorities are trying to stop these protests.
Zaka, you're right, but the issue is not about protests. People have the right to peacefully protest. But what we have seen are violent protests, attacks on Indian missions, attacks on Indian diplomats. And this incident that happened on Sunday should not be seen in isolation, because Indian missions and Indian diplomats in the UK have faced attacks since the 1970s. In 1984, an Indian diplomat was kidnapped and murdered. The fact is that the Anglosphere countries, the 5 core Anglosphere countries, have become the base for anti-India separatist militants. And the attack on the Indian High Commission in London that we saw on Sunday led to the copycat attack on the Indian Consulate in San Francisco just a few hours later.
Yeah.
So when you see that some people, your community people in London were able to attack and storm the Indian High Commission with impunity, you get encouraged. So what happened in London should be seen in a broader context. And I think today's withdrawal of security barricades is largely a symbolic step. I don't think it will persuade the UK government to take serious action, because this is not going to lead to any concrete action. When previous attacks have not led to concrete action, I don't think the mere withdrawal of security barricades. In the first place, the Indian High Commission in London doesn't have security barricades of the type that the British High Commission in New Delhi enjoys. These barricades should not be there in the first place. And even when we withdraw these barricades, we tend to bring these barricades back. The same thing happened with the US Embassy 10 years ago or so, when we removed those security barricades, and before long, the security barricades were back. So removing security barricades by themselves will not send any message to London. London needs to be told that for long it has harbored Sikh and Kashmiri militants. The problem is not about protesters. Peaceful protests are fine, but harboring violent separatists and also sheltering economic fugitives from India. London has become the magnet for criminals and economic fraudsters.
All right. That's a separate matter, so we'll delve into that on another occasion. But I want to come to Wasiq and ask him this. Let me give you a comparable example, right? If tomorrow a bunch of folks from the Middle East, right, and I'm not naming countries here, were to come out and protest outside the US Embassy in support of Osama bin Laden, would that be acceptable? Would the British authorities, would the Metropolitan Police allow such a protest to come forth? Because let's be very, very clear. What these protesters, whether they're peaceful or violent, of course, no one has a problem with peaceful protests, but what they're essentially asking for is separatism. They want to dismember a sovereign nation and ask for a separate state. And no one here in India, by the way, is asking for it. It's a bunch of folks in Canada and in London and in Ottawa. No one here in Punjab or anywhere in India is asking for a separate state of Khalistan. So peaceful they may be today, but the fact is it is still separatist. So to my question, would the British authorities allow a bunch of people to protest outside the US embassy in honor of Osama bin Laden?
Well, I don't think they would allow anyone to protest in honor of Osama bin Laden, but we have seen them allow a number of individuals from the Middle East to protest in favor of the Al-Quds force, which is the Iranian force that is currently designated as an extremist organization. But the fact is we have a legal framework here where the Article 11 of the European Convention of Human Rights allows people to assemble freely. However, that can be limited if national security is at risk. And what we saw on Sunday was demonstrative of national security being at risk. And what we need to see from the UK government, from the security services, is a sense of cognizance of the threat that Khalistani extremists pose, not just to Bharat, but also domestically here, whereby we're seeing now today individuals that are bringing their children there. And so this is going to become a multi-generational campaign.
No, I believe there was a report, Wasiq, and I'm sure you're aware of this. This is a British government report. This is not an Indian government report, a British government report that was tabled a few weeks ago, in which this was identified as one of the biggest threats. Khalistani separatism seeping its way into second and third generation British Punjabis, as it were, British Sikhs, as it were. It has been identified. It has been identified in a report of the British government. I think this was right after the last set of protests happened. I think over a cricket match in Leicester. A few weeks after that, there was this report. And this has been identified as one of the problem areas that the British authorities need to pay attention to. And yet, here we are. What happened on Sunday? What's happening today?
Yeah, absolutely. And the report that you're referring to is the William Shawcross report on Prevent. Prevent is our extremism program that's designed to prevent people from becoming radicalized and extremists. And it's only taken now over a number of years for the UK security services to identify this threat. Now that we know, we need to obviously do something about it, and we need to expedite and be able to deal with this proportionately so that instances like this do not occur again.
So let me also bring in the domestic angle to this. Arshdeep Singh Clare is joining us. He's from the Shiromani Akali Dal. Your party, Mr. Clare, has promised all the youths who were rounded up by the Punjab police as part of this Operation Amritpal, as it were. You have said that you will provide them legal representation. I want to ask you, Mr. Clare, isn't this cynical politics? At the end of the day, the Punjab government is claiming that this 100+ people who they've rounded up and are in different, jails, whether it's in Punjab or in other states, were all associated in one way or the other with Amritpal. You're essentially saying that you're going to give legal assistance to people who've been associated with a person who's calling for a separate state.
I think the situation is much more far-fetched than we are discussing it today. This is not 100 people. I can assure you that there are many more numbers to it. And what Punjab government today is doing, that they are not even drawing a line. So there has to be a line that who is the accomplice of Amritpal and who is just a follower of Amritpal. But Punjab government is just arresting the innocent youth and putting them behind the bars. So I must ask the question to Mr. Bhagwant Mann, that a 20-year-old youth, a 22-year-old or 25-year-old youth who was just a follower or who was just listening to his speech, does those youth deserve to be put in jail just because they were listening to his speeches? On the other hand, it is a failure of the state government. It is a failure of the intelligence agencies. If today they are saying that this man was waging a war against the country, then I must ask a question to Mr. Bhagwant Mann, that what was the security agencies doing from the last 8 months? Because Amritpal was roaming freely in Punjab from the last 8 months. And since this operation started from the last 5 days, he was very much present in his gaon, village, Jallupura, Jallukheda, whatever it is. So why did Bhagwant Mann didn't opt to arrest him? Shromani Akali Dal has always condemned any situation which has brought a defamation to Punjab. We say that what happened in the Janala was wrong and the Punjab government should have acted there and then. What
No,
happened
but can I ask you, Mr. Clare, I mean, when you say somebody who's a supporter of this man, aren't they also supporting him because they also believe in this separatist mindset or this separatist idea of carving out a Khalistan from modern day Punjab? I mean, surely that is not child's play.
No, there we say that we have to draw a line because Amrit Pal was not only talking about the Khalistan alone. He was doing many other activities. That is why we asked the Punjab government why the Punjab government was just sleeping over the matter. Amrit Pal was running Waheeds. Amrit Pal was doing Amrit Sanchar. Then all these activities, if some young person goes to just a function or a platform organized by Amrit Pal for Amrit Sanchar, then what is wrong in that?
Okay.
So no, you have to draw a line in that.
Okay, all right. Just give me a moment. I'm also getting an update from London because I'm given to understand that those protests, as of right now, it seems to be on the face of it peaceful. But we're given to understand, and my colleague Ritangshu in London is confirming this as well, that security has been stepped up outside the Indian High Commission because there were some reports, some of the protesters there tried to throw ink on the police. As a preventive measure, as a precaution, the police then used orange smoke flare that was just set off just moments ago to try and push back some of these protesters. You can see the ink there on the uniform of one of the police personnel who is standing outside the Indian High Commission. Let me just quickly play out what Ritangshu reported to us just moments ago outside the IHC in London.
I'm standing outside the Indian High Commission in Aldwych in central London. As you can see on the left here, there has been a massive police build-up that's been happening over the past few minutes because of to stop or at least negate this Khalistani protest that's been going on for the past 3 hours now. And see on both sides here, the police presence has been stepped up massively. There were reports earlier of ink being thrown on some of the police officials here by the protesters, which is why the police cover has been stepped up so dramatically here. This, of course, is the Indian High Commission. It's been barricaded off, securely kept away from the Khalistani protesters who are on the other side of the street. This was the flagpole which was targeted by the separatists last Sunday. It's been secured through barbed wire and chains to ensure the flag goes nowhere. And the bigger tricolour which is put up after that remains here. Here you can see ink stains which were thrown against some of the cops. And there's a massive deployment here. The protest was supposed to stop at 3 p.m. Local time. That was the instructions given to some of them. The protest was supposed to stop at local time. You can see some of these police officials have ink on their jackets here. And that is probably the reason why the police presence was stepped up. The protest was supposed to end about half an hour ago. It has not happened so far. And we still are waiting to see how and when, under what conditions this protest finally dissipates, whether it remains peaceful, which is what it has been so far, albeit with a lot of sloganeering and provocative slogans and shouts against the Indian state.
So you saw what the ink being thrown on the cops there, and an orange flare, smoke flare there set off by the London police to try and push the protesters back. As of now, I can say that things haven't gone out of hand. There is huge police presence. You can easily count at least 50, maybe even 100 police personnel outside the Indian High Commission building there in central London. Let me go back to Ambassador Suri. This whole game of security barricades being removed and, stepped up security presence outside the High Commission. Tomorrow, when there isn't stepped up security, someone, could come in and try to repeat what happened on Sunday. I think, is there anything that India can do to try and send a very, very cut and dry message to the British authorities that, trying to add fuel to this fire would be akin to groups who want to secede from Great Britain or from the United Kingdom? I mean, surely, how would the British take it if, India were to give a flare to people who want to separate away from Northern Ireland or Wales or Scotland? That wouldn't be tolerated by the British authorities. So why should India tolerate this outright separatist activity?
Well, Zaka, I don't know whether the British would tolerate or not, I think that's a separate area. But we have clear concerns, and I think we can have an escalation ladder where we present clear demands to the British that this is what our expectation is, both in terms of action against the perpetrators and their masters, but also preventative measures to make sure that this doesn't happen again. As I said, there's no dearth of CCTV cameras watching every street corner, every angle around the Aldwych area. I've worked in London for 4 years, and I know that area pretty well myself. And if we don't get a satisfactory response, then I think we are within our rights to say, okay, we are probably going to go a bit slow on the FTA discussions that we are having, because that's something that UK is very keen on. And post-Brexit, it probably needs it a lot more than we do. There are various ways of sending signals
But what would that escalation ladder look like? What would be the next steps if, let's say, these protests were to continue?
Well, as I said, the economic instrument of delaying FTA talks would be one measure to convey our displeasure.
Okay.
Slowing down on high-level visits could be another measure. And it's ironic that it's happening at a time when both the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary of UK happen to be of Indian descent.
Yeah, I wanted to get to exactly that point. Professor Brahmacharani, and we've seen this with Indian origin politicians, whether they are in the US, UK, Canada. Is there, domestic compulsions on them? Let's say, for example, in the case of Rishi Sunak, is there a domestic compulsion on him to be seen, for want of a better phrase, whiter than white? So if he were to act against these separatist elements, the average white voter there would see him as catering to a very narrow domestic constituency. Therefore, he prefers to be hands-off.
That certainly could be one angle, but it could also be possible that Rishi Sunak is beholden to the British deep state, just the way Prime Minister Trudeau is beholden to the Canadian deep state. And we saw in Canada more recently that, in fact, there is an ongoing political scandal in Canada about the fact that that China funded the Liberal Party, Trudeau's Liberal Party, in the last 2 elections. This is based on intelligence reports that have been leaked and published in newspapers. And Trudeau is opposing a public inquiry into that issue. But he has in his coalition people who are pro-Khalistan.
Correct.
So there is a domestic angle, but there's also this angle about the establishment in London, establishment in Ottawa, that tends to be traditionally not sympathetic to India. If you look at the BBC documentary, which has strained India-UK ties, according to BBC's own admission, that its documentary was based on a document given to it by the British Foreign Office.
Yeah.
Why would the British Foreign Office seek to put the relationship with India under strain? It's obviously because there are elements within the so-called deep state that are not friendly towards India. And that is the bigger concern for India. The issue is not so much the attack on the Indian High Commission. Of course, it was a big concern for India. The more fundamental issue is the fact that the UK has become a base for Kashmiri and Khalistan militants of the violent type. If they were peaceful protesters protesting outside the Indian missions, that wouldn't be such an issue.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the Indian High Commission was stormed, that people based in UK of British nationality but of Indian origin from Punjab and Kashmir are carrying on a secessionist campaign that is often violent. That's a big issue as to how India can rein in, how India can persuade Britain to rein in these violent
elements.
Separatists. And I think that India needs to take some.
If you were to look at what Britain did after the 7/7 bombings in 2005, there was a massive clampdown, and Wasiq remembers this. There was a massive clampdown on every person associated even in a remote, lengthy, distant fashion with those bombers. There were local mosque committees that were involved. There were raids that happened inside mosques and so on. So the British state, if it so chooses, can go after these elements who are either violent in nature or who are seeking some kind of a separatism. But they don't seem to show that intent when it comes to India, because it's like, yeah, we can do what we want to do and we can get away with it, because at some level, whether you like it or not, there is a colonial mindset at play. Wasi.
Yeah, so absolutely. When we look at what took place in 7/7 and then the subsequent Islamist terrorist attacks that took place a number of years after that, the state did take a really strong stance against it, and a number of measures were put in place to prevent that from happening. Now, when we look at the Khalistan extremism aspect that we have within Britain, the state has to take a similar but proportionate approach to it as well. Now, we don't necessarily face a domestic threat from Khalistani extremists, but Bharat's interests do face a threat from them. Now, you were talking about how could these protests escalate? Well, absolutely. Today we saw that a number of police officers were doused in ink. Tomorrow it could be battery acid, and then after that it could be something else. And so the state and the security services need to take this as seriously as it would take any other kind of security threat, and act upon it proportionately to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
All right. Like I said, today's incident may have been thwarted, but there's no guarantee that the next protest, it could happen on a Sunday, the next protest will not see the kind of flare-up that we saw last weekend. I think what really and clearly needs to be said to the British authorities is this is straight up secessionist sentiment, secessionist and separatist activity that's going on. And how would Britain like it if there were tomorrow a bunch of Northern Islanders or Scots or Welsh outside the British High Commission here asking for a separate country to be carved out of the United Kingdom? Let's move on. Thank you very much to all our guests. We'll try and see if we can, get more updates from London if there are developments during the course of the show in the later part. But let's now move on to Bengaluru, where there seems to be once again some form of collusion, if you will, between the BBMP, the Mahanagarapalikhe, the municipal authorities, and the huge builder lobby, because there is this massive 25 feet wide road that the BBMP has just given sanction to be built over a lake bed.
It is very disappointing that lake is being destroyed in the name of development and rejuvenation. Part of the lake is being destroyed.
This development, which is totally unnecessary. I think we are not only hampering the lake's ecology, but destroying the biodiversity.
This is the story of civic apathy in Bengaluru. There seems to be no end to it. The story of the Hosakerehalli Lake, which is one of the oldest lakes in the city. It had turned into a dumping ground, but now the BBMP has given sanction to, and pictures have emerged of this, what appears to be a road, a 25 feet road that's being built on that lake, permissions for which have been given up by the BBMP. This 25 feet wide road now sits on top of the lake. The BBMP claims that no road construction is taking place, but the mound of mud, and you can see the road rollers there, the other machinery that's there, it's very, very clear that they're rolling a road there on top of that lake bed. Meanwhile, despite the BBMP's assurances, residents and environmentalists in the area are raising an alarm, saying if you're going to build concrete structures on top of lake beds, we've already seen what happened in Martahalli and surrounding areas in the monsoon rains last year. This could potentially be another point of disaster.
We are here at Hosakerehalli, where a 25 feet wide road is being constructed right in the middle of the lake, allegedly to provide access to a luxury real estate project that is coming up near this region. It's very obvious that this road is being made for the benefit of somebody else.
Our objective was simple and clear: let the lake be like that what it was. Unnecessary desilting and unnecessary development in the name of lake regeneration doesn't make any sense.
This is totally unscientific. We are hampering the lake's ecology.
But this is not the first time that the Hosakerehalli lake has been in the news, spread across almost 60 acres. This lake receives untreated sewage from a stormwater drain, and it sees continuous dumping of garbage and construction debris. Out of the total extent of the lake, at least 7 acres have been encroached upon. Last year, 10 trees on the banks of the Hosakerehalli lake were illegally felled down. Officials from the BBMP's forest cell said that permission was not sought before the trees were chopped off. So clearly, no lessons have been learnt in Bengaluru, because last year the city's famed IT corridor on the Outer Ring Road was underwater after just a bout of rain. Bengaluru has a distinction of having interconnected lake systems, but these lakes are now overflowing because of rampant encroachment, construction, stormwater drains. Lack of infrastructure is also a factor behind the flooding. Where can the water go? When there are no culverts, there are no canals, there is no outlet for the water to go away, then roads act like a dam that is stopping the flowing water. The rainwater and sewage water have no other way to flow but to be accumulated, leading to waterlogging. Let me go across to our guests. Aditya Srinivas is a lawyer and analyst. Kavita Reddy is General Secretary with the Karnataka Congress. Aditya, first things first, the BBMP is not saying this, but why would you build a 25-feet road over a lake bed? The locals there are saying this is for some potential luxury real estate project that's coming up. This is the road that allows connectivity to that project. But the BBMP is not saying that. They're saying that that's not the case. Point is, what is happening in Bengaluru in terms of, are no lessons going to be learned from what happened last year? We saw the flooding in Mattahalli because of all the construction that had happened on top of lake beds. Now we're doing the same thing in South Bangalore.
Yes, it's ridiculous. And, for the BBMP to say that, no, we're not doing it for such and such reason, does not actually disclose what the actual reason for having constructed that 25-foot dam is. I think, from a legal standpoint, which is perhaps where I can say a thing or two, what needs to be kept in mind is that whenever there is this sort of a development activity, normally there is some sort of procedure that is set out, and the idea is that one needs to follow that procedure, unless there are parts of that procedure that that are not constitutionally required to be followed. The fact that such a procedure is not followed, the fact that it is expedient perhaps for some of the administrators of the civic body, or for that matter other bodies, I think points to the fact that it really speaks quite low of rule of law and the extent to which it is followed in Bengaluru, which I think is unfortunate.
No, so I just want to know, before a road is built, and obviously this is being built on public land, shouldn't there be an environmental study? Shouldn't, civic organizations, resident welfare associations be consulted with before a road of this nature? It's not a small road, it's a 25 feet wide road. Shouldn't that be mandatorily done before it's undertaken?
Yes, and you have provisions under various statutes at the central level which mandate the conduct of such studies. Now, obviously, I should caveat all of this by saying that there are always exceptions in respect of the extent to which you have to follow some of these requirements and procedures.
Mm-hmm.
But one would think that when it comes to a lake in a city which has already had its fair share of environmental mess, that you would have to, at the very least, conduct some sort of an impact assessment. The fact that they were able to, it seems, on the basis of the facts that have been collected to date, the fact that they were able to construct a 25-foot bridge of sorts without having conducted an assessment speaks volumes.
So let me ask Kavita Reddy. Now, this is what the people there are claiming, the activists there, the environmentalists, the residents, welfare associations, that this entire 25 feet road is being built for some kind of high-end luxury real estate project. If that is true, and like I said, the BBMP is denying it, but if it is true, this once again throws to light this whole builder lobby collusion with the municipal authorities. Basically, no one seems to be able to break this nexus. We saw this in Mattahalli, how, there was encroachment on lake beds, there was simply no drainage systems for water to flow. The same thing seems to be continuing now in this part of Bangalore.
Zaka, I will have to say that I've spoken with most of the activists there because a lot of them have worked with me earlier also. So they're very clear, and it is that the truth is that the road construction is happening for a particular project, whose name I don't want to disclose on the show. Maybe it just doesn't call for it right now. But the fact is that it is for a private, entity which is getting built there. And this is not the first take. And of all the also most important thing is that the NGT, which was one of the strongest bodies in Karnataka, has been literally demolished completely. I mean, the Chennai Tribunal, as well as the Bangalore one, which had an extension arm where we had two of this, judges who were there, retired justices. One was Santosh Hegde, the other one, Subhash Adi, was there. Both have been literally not been able to do anything at all. And the kind of activism which was built on these lakes, the kind of involvement of NGT, the clear guidelines of NGT, the gentleman was mentioning that there will be some kind of exceptions. There's absolutely no exception when it comes to NGT guidelines. It's very clear that they cannot construct any road dividing the lake, especially when it is more than a 60-acre lake. This is actually it is more than that, and there's no possibility of giving way to another project just because it suits them.
But tell me, ma'am, why is this still continuing? Why is nobody able to sort of crack down on this builder lobby and municipal authorities, municipal corporation collusion that's been going on? Like I said, we saw that in Martahalli as well as other parts of the Outer Ring Road. One bout of rain, it was not too much rain, it was just one spell of rain, and that entire belt got flooded out because the water simply doesn't have any place to go.
Zaka, three things has happened. The first and foremost is that the NGT has literally been demolished. They've taken out the tooths and the nails of the NGT. The kind of activism NGT used to do on its own itself is completely cut down. So you don't have anything coming out of NGT right now. So that is the first part of it. The second most important part is that the BBMP really cares a damn. That's a kind of the attitude, not only for this lake, across Bangalore, all the lakes. See, there was a circular which was given by the government saying that all the lakes in Bangalore should be handed over to BBMP. Earlier, the Forest Department, the Lake Development Authority, the panchayats, different bodies used to maintain the lake, and there was some kind of a difference in it. But today, everything have been handed over to BBMP, and they don't have neither the resources nor the intent to maintain this lake, and they get involved in the political pressures.
So what recourse then, Aditya? What recourse do the citizens there, the residents, the activists? One second, ma'am, I'll come back to you. What recourse do they have? Because as ma'am just said, if the NGT has been made so toothless and powerless, they clearly can't approach that tribunal. And if you go to a regular court of law, I mean, by the time the court adjudicates upon that matter, this road would have already come up. Maybe even the luxury project would have come up.
So I have a few points to make over here, Zaka. Firstly, that particular premise is not necessarily true. It's open for an individual to obviously approach the writ courts and seek some sort of a remedy under that, which is quite apart from what you can do under the jurisdiction of the NGT. That's one. But I think the more important point that I want to make is that from a citizen's perspective, things are really only ever going to change once environment and conservation of the environment, particularly of things like the ecology of lakes in a city that is which has had its share of concerns, such as Bangalore from an environmental perspective. Until the environment becomes a voting issue, I really don't know what long-term effect there's going to be and what long-term strategy there is from the citizens' perspective to ensure that the ecology of their city is not affected.
But, Kavita Reddy, aren't you surprised that the ecology is not an issue already? I mean, people will tell you the Bangalore of today compared to the Bangalore of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there is a sea change in the climate. It is far hotter today in Bangalore than it used to be 10, 20 years ago. Like I said, we saw the monsoon season and the mess that it created in many parts of the city, which were unplanned. There was encroachments. There was no adequate stormwater drains. And then, of course, let's not forget, all the frothing that we've seen from Belandur Lake and other places. So I'm surprised that, Bangaloreans don't care about these issues enough in a way that it affects their voting choices.
No,
Yeah,
Zaka, if you, I
it's
mean, I
quite
was on
Kavita
your
Reddy,
show
yeah,
couple
thank
of
you.
when the Congress was in the ruling, I was on your show many times, and there was so much of discussions and debates happening on the lakes. But today, if you see, nothing is happening for the fact that a lot of policy changes has been made, which is impacting the whole thing. See, there was a time when we had citizen involvement. The High Court even today says that every lake should have a body which is formed by the citizens who are becoming the part of the decision making process and regular
Okay.
maintenance process. But BBMP has completely, sort of cut that off, and they're basically not allowing any citizens to get involved, any citizen activism to get involved. They've just completely cut it off. And there's a lot of political involvement. I think one
All
of the
right.
fears, irrespective of political parties, I'm saying it, one of the biggest fears we had that the minute it's been given to BBMP, there will be a lot of local body political involvement, and at the
All
constituency
right.
level, the
I'm
political
completely
involvement.
out
I'll
of
give you an
time. I want
example.
to thank
When
Kavita Reddy,
I
Aditya
just
Srinivas for
one
joining
point.
us. Because I'm completely out of time. Thank you very much to both our guests for joining us. Like I said, this is absolutely unacceptable what the BBMP is doing, making a road, a wide, 25 feet wide road, allegedly at the behest of a private luxury real estate project. That's the claim that's being made by the activists and the residents and the environmentalists in that area. It is absolutely unacceptable in this day and age. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back right on the other side, why an earthquake in Afghanistan is triggering panic across Delhi NCR, what you need to do when an earthquake strikes, especially if you're residing in a high-rise building. We'll tell you right on the other side.
Agencies also found linkages of Amritpal with cross-border drug dealers who are based in Pakistan, and we're learning about certain names here. This is Billah, Bilal and Rana. Now, to get us more details on this, we're being joined by News 18's Ankur Sharma. Ankur, over to you.
Yeah, Aisha, so it's central agencies are suspecting that since time Amritpal arrived in Punjab last year in August, so there has been a massive increase in drone movements last year. In fact, they have recorded the highest number of drone movements from Pakistan side, sending arms, ammunition, drugs through drones to India. And according to the data, last year 256 drone movements have been noticed by BSF, which is approximately 4 times high than 2021. Which in 2021 it was 67 drone movements which was noticed by BSF. Data also shows that Jammu border also saw a rise, almost a double rise last year of the drone movement, and there is also concerns that now agencies are linking these high movement of drones because of Amritpal. They are claiming that Amritpal is in touch with various drug dealers based in Punjab like Billah, Bilal and Rana. They are based in Pakistan and sending drugs, arms, ammunition with the local help, and the local help was provided by Amritpal and his local criminals. He used to manage local supplies in India, and whenever they used to send drones, drugs and arms, ammunition, so in India, Amritpal used to send these drugs to a concerned person and other. So agencies are now correlating these drug movements with Amritpal entry in India. Probably they have find multiple other linkages also. Amritpal also already met SFJ chief in London, and there are other allegations also that he got trained in Georgia. So all these aspects have been linked by central agencies, and now they are working on these aspects. Back to you.
All right, Ankur, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us those details on that exclusive input. Now, we're going to be heading over to CNN News 18's Anshul Singh, who's joining us live from Jalandhar, where he's been tracking all of the developments in this story. Anshul, good morning. Can you tell us about whatever updates have come in, say, in the last 12 hours per se?
Well, if you see, the Punjab police is still trying to figure out the last known location of Amritpal Singh. They are actually trying to route the entire map through which Amritpal Singh might have escaped, because Remember the entire operation when it was being conducted, the Punjab police actually anticipated that Amritpal Singh is going to come out and surrender himself, but the manner in which he escaped from the location came as a very big shock for the Punjab police, and hence Amritpal Singh actually managed to escape from the grasp of the police, because police did not anticipate that there is going to be such a massive chase that is going to take place. But yes, on the other hand, Amritpal Singh, who projected himself as the next big thing, as the next guru, and he after the entire Ajnala incident happened, the manner in which he came out and said that he is going to take action against the Punjab police, the Punjab government, and he's going to continue to do that if at all any sort of FIR or any sort of action is taken against him. But yes, the CCTV.
Welcome back. Last night's earthquake in the Hindu Kush region of Afghanistan triggered panic across North India, particularly in Delhi and the National Capital Region. The tremors lasted almost a minute and forced panic-stricken people to rush out of their homes and take refuge in open areas. It was even tougher for those living in high-rises. Multiple videos have emerged on social media of ceiling fans and chandeliers swaying and people rushing down 15 to 20 flights of stairs to get to safety. Many say this was the scariest earthquake they've experienced. Now, if the epicenter of the quake was Afghanistan, why were such strong tremors felt in northern India? Now, one big reason is that the origin of the quake was about 156 kilometers below the Earth's surface, and deep earthquakes are often felt more over larger distances. The Indo-Australian plate is colliding with the Eurasian plate. Another factor is that the Hindu Kush Himalayan range is very active seismologically. So, is there any science to understand the sensitivity of seismic zones, and can earthquakes be predicted? A Dutch researcher, Frank Hogebeets, had predicted the Turkey-Syria quake on the 3rd of February, 3 days before the quake actually happened. On the 8th, the researcher predicted seismic activity in Asia. He's also anticipated a large quake originating in Afghanistan and warned of tremors which would be felt through Pakistan and India. So then the moot question, what can you do if you are caught in an earthquake? For starters, do not panic. That's the absolute last thing you need to be doing. If you're indoors, try and crawl under heavy furniture. Try and take shelter under a dining table. That's the best place to be. Definitely stay away from any windows or doors. Do not, under any circumstances, use the elevator. Always take the stairs instead. If you're already outside the high-rise, ensure that you're in an open space and that you're away from power lines. Also, try and get as far away as possible from any high-rise buildings. If you're in a car while the earthquake hits, then stop the vehicle and stay inside till the quake itself stops. Yesterday was a harrowing experience for a lot of Delhi NCR folks, particularly those who live in big joint families, have elderly parents living in high-rise compounds. It is very difficult to run down flights of stairs. So hopefully you found that explainer useful. Thank you very much for your time. Good night.
ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਡੀ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਵੀ 315 ਬੋਰ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਰਾਈਫਲ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ, ਕੁਝ ਤਲਵਾਰਾਂ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ ਵਾ, ਵਾਕੀ ਟਾਕੀ ਸੈੱਟ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਵਾ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਰਮਡ ਐਕਟ ਦਾ ਕੇਸ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਸਟਡੀ ਚੋਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤ ਤੋਂ ਭਜਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਐਡ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ FIR ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਹਿਮ ਗੱਲ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਈ ਆ ਕਿ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੌੜਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਨੰਗਲ ਅੰਬੀਆਂ ਪਿੰਡ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਿਆ। ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਕੱਪੜੇ ਚੇਂਜ ਕੀਤੇ, ਉਹਨੇ शर्ट पाई, पैंट पाई, फिर उत्थों दौड़िया, अपनी जी तलवार से उत्थे छड़ दी।
5 से 6 केस दर्ज है भाई अमृतपाल सिंह के ऊपर और वो इंडियन पीनल कोड के केसेस हैं और कोई ऑफेंस नहीं लगाया। तो